Salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. V back with another Age of Empires 3 Thursday, number 19, and we will have 20 episodes of AOE3 Thursday before the end of the year. 20 episodes of premium Age of Empires 3 content. Oh, sweet Lord. But seriously, thank you for all of you that have been joining me on this wonderful journey, whether you were there at the start or you've just jumped on board this crazy wagon. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Now let's get into the player introductions, and then I get to tell you about this wacky map. In the south of this map, playing in the color red, as the Inca, we have Spartan 29. He is indeed the 29th Spartan, putting down 2 Concha houses, and his first shipment is going to be 3 villagers. Who would have thunk? And in the north of the map, playing in the color blue as the Franche, we have none other than Evolution. And yeah, that's right, you did see that correctly. You have a CDB in queue, very, very standard, but you have a Pilgrim in queue simultaneously. And that's because we are on the unknown map this week. It's another one of those maps that you won't see in competitive play, but you know what? That's kind of why I like it. And it's why I like featuring these maps, because who wants to just see 1v1 on Saguenay every week? I mean, that would get boring. So you got to throw in a little flavor. It's like an Age of Empires 3 gumbo, you know? You got to add a little spice, not too much, but you got to have a little bit to make life more interesting. So, Inca versus France on the map unknown. Why is this map so weird? Well, number 1, the Pilgrims. Number 2, both players got a sacred field to start, and there are plenty of sheep on this map that they can gather, send to those fields, and they will get a nice boost of XP there. Also, I don't know if this was a setting thing or if this is a map thing, but if we look at the starting age, starts in exploration, okay, sure. And the ending age, which is usually Imperial, which is the highest age in the game, in this game, it is the Commerce age, which means we are going to have an Age 2 slugfest, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, no Fortress Age, no cannons, no stone walls, because I know some of you are getting sick of all the walls on this channel. What can I say? Walls equal wins. It's going to be Age 2 only, France versus Inca, and I kind of like the Civ choice of both players. Obviously, Inca, very strong in H2, just a very strong Civ in general, but France also very flexible, and they can pull off some pretty good H2 builds. They've got a nice variety of units in the Commerce Age. I think their Fortress Age is certainly stronger, and late game France tends to grow and scale harder than a lot of other Civs. But definitely don't count France out in H2, and Evolution clicking on up with the Governor, which Evolution's actually the other reason I picked this game, because, you know, Evolution, I played him in the Cavern Combat tournament, and we had a lot of fun. We went to 3 games, and he did beat me. He beat me fair and square. He is definitely the superior player, but I really enjoyed those games. He seemed like a very, very nice individual. And so when I saw that he posted a replay, I was like, you know what? Somebody's got to cast this, and why not the man he kicked the pants off of? But putting down a trade post is going to take some damage from that Chasqui scout from the Inca, and that Inca's going to get out of there. But the trading post now going down in transition. Meanwhile, the Inca player, I do believe his age up is going to be slightly faster than the French player. Yep. So he's going to have about 15 seconds, 20 seconds on the French player's build, which I don't know if he's going to use that for some sort of aggression, or if Inca's just going to try to boom. Does get the 2 Builder Travois, and they're going to the middle of the map. Ladies and gentlemen, are we going to see a forward base from the Inca player? It's possible. It's likely. It might happen. Where's he going to place it? See, I would place it right here. You got a nice little choke point. You can guard this middle town center, or not town center, trading post. Allow the French player, you know, don't allow him to expand. Words, Mr. V, words. Use them. But deciding not to build, sent 600 wood, sent 600 wood again, continuing to make villagers. Is that scout going to see it? Okay, so the scout doesn't see the houses, but is he not going to build? This is so weird. Meanwhile, Evolution's got 2 shipments. Send those, dude. Oh my, what is that deck? Well, I mean, if you're not going to use H3 and H4, right? But when do you see he's got Team French Auxiliary for natives. He's got House of Bonaparte, which gives skirmishers in H2. He's got Furrier. He's got Economic Theory. He's got Ancien Regime. Rum Distillery. Oh my goodness. No combat yet, just some treasure takes here. Picking up another 80 food. Evolution. He is hoarding the food. He is binge eating his way through this map, and looks like he did send 4 CDB along with 700 wood. And getting placer mines in, building muskets, has a barracks down, and a lot of villagers on coin. Why does he have that many vills on coin? Is he planning to do some sort of transition into Hussar? We know he's not aging, right? Because he's maxed out his age up. It's the 5-minute mark, and these players are now at the highest age they can be, and I love that. I absolutely love it. It's so refreshing, right? After seeing Industrial Age, Fortress Age, and all of those kind of meta builds, just seeing 2 players slug it out in H2, kind of like in the vanilla days where H2 was a lot stronger than it is now. And it looks like Tomos de Cadillac is going to take out that scout, but the Inca Explorer is not going to let him get away with it. Even another scout being produced here. And this Explorer is definitely going to go down. It looks like the Inca player decided to spend those 2 Builder Treboy on Trading Post, which I think is a good idea. It just seemed very delayed. Like, I mean, you guys saw it. He was just kind of sitting in the middle of the map for a solid 30, 60 seconds when he could have been gathering XP from those Trading Posts. Now, at this level, you know, kind of 13, 14, 15, 1600, I don't think that's going to be the thing that breaks the game. But it's certainly something to point out. And the native scout going down, so the French player is now pretty much blind to whatever the Inca player is going to do. But I think Spartan's just going to go for a pretty heavy concha boom here. You can definitely see getting down a lot of concha houses. He's up to 196 population. Holy crap. War huts going down, more concha houses. He's got 2, 3 war huts already. And out come the Chimu Runners, ladies and gentlemen. The unit that is the bane of so many Age of Empires 3 players. But I do think that France has a decent composition to deal with it, right? If Evolution just goes heavily into Musketeers and Hussar, which he does have a stable down, he is producing Hussars, and even sending the team House of Bonaparte. So he could get a really strong composition of Musketeers, Hussar, and H2 Skirm. And I think that actually would catch the Inca player off guard. I don't think he's expecting to run into H2 Skirms. So to try to deal with those with Chimu Runners and Jungle Bowmen, especially when you're dealing with French Musketeers and Hussars on top of it, you know, it's going to be an interesting play for the Inca player. I think it's going to be really up to who in H2 can take the most map control, who can utilize the trading post route and get some early damage in. But Evolution, even going for Amalgamation here, which usually that's seen as kind of a bad move to research it this early. But when you're not going to invest in the Fortress Age, you might as well just max up your upgrades as soon as you can. So that expensive coin upgrade is coming down. The scout is going to be caught by these musketeers, but now Spartan knows the main composition of Evolution's army. And let's see if he gets some Jungle Bowmen in to compensate. He's got Chimu Runners, and more Chimu Runners. Why make anything else, right? French Explorer going to go down here once again. A nice 45 XP for the Inca player. He is now max pop on his concha houses. Still has plenty of food in his base. And is looking pretty. 29 vills versus 31 for the French player. So actually, Evolution does have a slight advantage here. And if he's able to continue getting out Hussars, I actually like his chances against the Chimu Runners. I don't know the exact stats, but I know that Chimu Runners are not the most effective against Hussars. Meanwhile, Hussars do actually fairly darn well against Chimu Runners. Fairly cost effective, I believe. Now, I might be wrong on that. Especially when you're taking fire from 2 war huts and a town center, not going to be cost effective. But it looks like Evolution has spotted the transition to Jungle Bowman, and I think Spartan is going to go for a pure Jungle Bowman and Chimu composition, which if Evolution's able to get out a Musketeer Hussar Skirm composition, I do like France's chances of taking any future fights. But he has sent Furrier now, so really stocking up on these food upgrades. He's sent Economic Theory, plus furrier. So his work rate is already up by 25% just from the cards he's sent. And then you add on hunting dogs and steel traps on top of that. So these French villagers, excuse me, are collecting resources at an astounding rate. He's now got 14 vills on food, 11 on coins, 7 on wood. So trying to go for a balanced mix and even getting blunderbuss, and I'm sure he's going to get great coat on top of that, making a drummer. What? Evolution just made a drummer, ladies and gentlemen. That's incredible. What does a drummer do? I have no idea what a drummer is. It strikes me that I've never seen a drummer in a game of AOE2 or AOE3 before, excuse me, who can inspire military units to move and attack faster. That could be really strong with his Hussar. If he's able to buff their speed and their attack speed. Also, I can't talk today. Oh my goodness. I always thought that I had mastered English fairly well, but today is proving me wrong. And the Hussar are going to go out on a punitive raid here. Possibly going to see if any villagers are starting to gather on the outskirts, maybe get a couple of decent raids in. But, I mean, Spartan has done a very good job keeping his resources centralized. I mean, it's going to be really hard. Between all the Concha houses, it's going to be hard to get in here and do significant damage. But not if Spartan doesn't get his villagers back. Going to lose one villager. Come on, Spartan. Protect your home. And the Chimu runners immediately getting on those Hussar. Going to be able to pick a couple off, but a couple of the Hussar here, actually the Chimu runners are being blocked by the Concha houses. The Hussar's going to get a villager here for free. Yes, another Vill going down, and now the score is 37 Vills to 33 from Spartan, and we now have a fight in the middle of the map here as the Jungle Bowmen do get engaged with Musketeers. It's going to be a really good fight for them. Just has to hope that no Hussars are coming in to reinforce, and there they are, 5 Cav, going to try to drive off these Jungle Bows, but the Chimu runners coming to reinforce as well, and both players are mustering their full armies here. We might see the push that we've been looking for. This could be a short game. If one player takes this fight, it is over. And now Spartan getting some Plumed Spearmen in the mix, going to be really good against those Hussars, as long as he doesn't get them picked off by the Musketeers and Skirmishers of the French player. But now, double Skirm production coming from Evolution, along with Wilderness Warfare, which is going to give the Skirmishers 20% hit points. And I love Evolution's card progression here. He's really adapted to the max H2 play very well. Meanwhile, Spartan, he has a lot of H3 and H4 cards in his deck, which means half of his deck is basically useless. I don't know if they planned to play on this map or it was a surprise, but Evolution having a deck ready to go, and I don't know if Spartan had an H2 deck ready, because who has a deck that's just H2? But now the main fight gonna happen here. Hussar gonna try to get involved with the Plume Spearmen, keeping them at bay. They're gonna have to get targeted by the Musketeers and this massive infantry. Skirmishers getting involved as well, and the pathing for the Inca army is not going well here. A lot of the Chimu runners going down, chasing after the Hussar. Great micro by Evolution, getting his Hussar in the back lines against the Jungle Bowmen, and so many of those Chimu runners were just drawn off course. Very few of them were actually getting damage on the infantry. The Musketeers taking out a ton of this heavy infantry from the Inca, and there's not enough Jungle Bowmen, and even the Musketeers getting involved in the melee with the Jungle Bowmen, and that is a hard win for Evolution. Still tons of Skirmishers in the back, and a nice mass of Musketeers still alive to deal with any more Chimu runners, and a hard fight for Spartan 29, and I don't know if he's going to be able to recover from that. 36 Vills versus 40 for the French player, and more Hussars getting involved in combat now. Jungle Bowmen very strong, but if the Hussars can just tank while the Skirmishers target the Plumed Spearmen, this is going to be another decisive victory for the French player. And Evolution, what a great engagement there. Although I don't know if that was as much Evolution's play as just the lack of micro from Spartan 29 there, getting a lot of his Chimu runners running around without doing a lot of damage, chasing after those few Hussars rather than getting in on the infantry fight. And now the villagers being forced just out here to gather from food is going to be taken back by those Hussars, maybe even a couple going down, and the more Chima runners are out, but there's just not enough military here from the Inca player, and now a lot of vills getting belled up. The economy is going to be put not to a standstill, but definitely going to be crippled, and the Chima runners going down very quickly to the musketeer fire, and we have to remember that the skirmishers from the French player have been buffed by the wilderness card. More plumed spearmen coming out, but not a lot of cav for them to even engage in, so gonna be shot down immediately by this massive ranged infantry, and a really poor trade there for Spartan 29, and that is game. Ladies and gentlemen, what an age 2 slobber knocker that was. Oh, I loved that. See, this felt to me like a really cool variation of the regular meta 1v1. And it's these kind of games that I love watching because there's just strategies and cards that you see in these games that you don't see in other games. So like if I go to Evolution's deck here, we have some very standard cards, right? 3 CDB, 4 CDB, 700 wood. But then you get to see things like Furrier, Economic Theory, which aren't completely foreign, right? You'll see those in a lot of games, especially if a player's going for a more boomy build. But then you start seeing things like Hand Cavalry, Team Hand Cavalry, just to get that extra buff. And usually you wouldn't like putting team cards in your deck, but I mean, when you only have 2 ages, why not? And then you have the House of Bonaparte. I thought that was a really good move by Evolution to get those skirmishers involved. And I think it just really threw Spartan for a loop when he had that extra unit composition that he had to deal with, rather than just the standard, you know, musketeer, hussar, maybe a few crossbows mixed in from a shipment. And then, you know, ranged infantry hit points along with wilderness warfare. I mean, this army for the French player was insanely buffed because you have, I mean, 15% here, 20% here, and then when you go to cav, 15%, 15%. So yeah, the French army just being really strong, and the amount of upgrades that the Inca player had, I mean, he had the one upgrade for his jungle bowman. He had the Warhut Travois. He had economic cards. Okay, so he did have a couple of upgrade cards in here. So, I mean, the Inca player doing fairly well. I thought his early boom was just absolutely fantastic, but definitely ran out of steam. And when he lost that first big fight, it was pretty much over, right? Because the French player had the Vil lead, he had the military lead, and yeah, it was just a snowball from there. But let's look at all of this in more detail. Follow me to the post game. Here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are in the post game, and as we look at the resources tab for our first analysis here, we do see a significant difference between France and Inca, about a 3,000 resource different, which in a game that's only 14 minutes, that's pretty significant. And it looks like Inca lost really hard on the coin department, which, I mean, that makes sense for Inca. But yeah, even in food, I mean, pretty even. And then in wood, you know, obviously Inca had a pretty significant advantage there. But when you go to the military units, that's kind of where the tail of the tape comes out. You know, you have 110 military for France. You have 122 military for Inca. Seems slightly Inca favored. But when you consider the upgrades that France had and just the composition that France had, I mean, they lost 43 units, killed 109 units for the Inca. And I think a lot of that was the Chimu runners not being used as effectively as they could have been. And then a lot of those plumed spearmen kind of just being thrown into the front line and easily picked off by the ranged infantry rather than waiting, holding back, and then getting engaged when the cavalry tried to rejoin. And that's something, you know, that's something I do with my pike units a lot, is I just kind of throw them into combat and then they get killed immediately. And then when the Cavs show up, you're kind of at a loss, right? Because you used all those units to soak up in the front line rather than saving them for the most opportune moment. And, you know, and sometimes soaking with your pikemen is a good thing, right? You don't want to just keep them back and never engage. But for there, I think it might have been good for Spartan to maybe keep some of those plumed spearmen back and try to keep those Hussar at bay. Or, you know, maybe even switch production, get out a few plumed spearmen, and then go right back into jungle bowmen and Chimu runners. But when we look at the timeline here, we do see that, you know, both guys keeping a very, very consistent villager count, which was really cool to see. a couple of villager shipments in there as well. I mean, these guys playing really, really well economically. You know, we don't see any long gaps of villagers not being made. We do see a little dip here in that raid. I think that raid was kind of where Spartan 29 maybe started to get flustered a little bit because his own concha houses were blocking his villagers from getting away and into the town center. And then, you know, the French villager staying very, very consistent. You know, 43 versus 35 at the end. So not a huge deficit. And I think, you know, this game wasn't won or lost due to economy, even if France had a little bit of an advantage. It was mainly won or lost in the micro, right? In the engagement where just that one fight for the Inca really, you know, sealed the deal. We can look at the military unit population. I mean, we can see that huge drop at the 12-minute mark from 75 all the way to 16 units. Oh my gosh. And then when we go to, you know, the villager population, obviously stayed consistent. I think I already talked about that. But yeah, a really, really entertaining game. You know, if these are the kinds of matches that you guys like, you know, maybe these more kind of unorthodox, a little bit out of the, you know, normal box kind of matches, please let me know. Or if you are someone that just likes your traditional 1v1, standard settings, standard maps, let me know there too. And I just want to take a moment before I sign off, excuse me, guys. I really appreciate the feedback and the comments I've been getting, both positive and, you know, constructive when it comes to criticism. I appreciate all of it. You know, the growth has been really awesome. I know in terms of, you know, YouTube, I'm very small, but every person that's stuck around and watched and maybe even subscribed, you know, that means a ton. And I hope to continue doing this, branch out to some more games in the future. Now that my schedule is getting a little less busy after the holiday season, maybe we can dabble in some RTSs, some Total War, or maybe, you know, some other games depending on what you guys want. But I am really looking forward to next week. I've got an extra special match I'm trying to line up for you guys. But Evolution, if you watch this, hey man, I hope you're doing well. And Spartan 29, this is the first time I've seen you play, but great game, man. I really appreciate you guys sending in this replay. And I will see you all next week. But until then, have a great day. Have a great life. See you later.